Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for the 22nd of July, 2013. A little bit to talk about now out in the Atlantic Basin, way over here in the far eastern part of the Atlantic Ocean, just off the coast of Africa. 98L, it has been designated. What is a 98L, you may ask? Well, the Hurricane Center designates the suspect areas of weather once they reach a certain threshold of interest with a number, 90 through 99, and the letter L for Atlantic. If it were in the eastern Pacific, which we do have an area of interest there, it gets the letter E and the letter W for the western Pacific. So that's what that numbering scheme is all about, 90 through 99 for these areas of investigation, and then we just simply call them Invest 98L as an example. So this is what it looks like on a satellite shot. Really not much going on with it just yet. However, let's take a look at a really neat satellite animation of the system. You can see pretty good rotation with it just at the end of the loop, right in here. Pretty good rotation with a tropical wave, that turning broad circulation, low pressure area trying to develop some scattered convection, some of it pretty dense right off the coast of Africa. And this will try to develop over the coming days under marginal conditions, fairly dry atmosphere, still some instability issues over the eastern Atlantic to overcome. But it has a shot, so the Hurricane Center has outlooked it, as we call it, that verb, outlooked, and given it a 10% chance of development. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you is the water vapor, or the precipitable water is a better way to look at it. And you can see that right here. This is a really neat graphic from the University of Wisconsin. This is the tropical wave. And on the color scale here, anything that you see on the top third of the scale is very high amounts of water vapor or precipitable water in the atmosphere. And in this case, that water in the atmosphere, or energy, heat is energy. And we're looking for large amounts of water, precipitable water in the atmosphere. These blues all through here denoting fairly dry air, and these oranges denoting more moist air. And currently the tropical wave coming off of Africa right here in a pretty moist environment. They actually call it a pouch. There's another tropical wave right here, and you also notice why they call them tropical waves. Don't you see that little wave of low pressure there, fairly dry, but another one right here, and it moves along in the trade winds and the trade flow. So this does have decent moisture associated with it now. However, you can see also coming off the coast of Africa is a large area of Saharan air, dry, more stable air, as a large, sprawling, high-pressure area is going to develop over the Atlantic Ocean, reaching way high in the atmosphere. So a stacked, very deep layer ridge will more than likely squash this system as it moves west and basically inject all this dry air into it over time. Nonetheless, it's out there. It's interesting to see another potential development area this early in the season. We're only on July 22nd. We're about a month away from things really starting to take shape. Here's another look at the Saharan air layer that I just mentioned. Pretty dry and stable air mass working its way out over the Atlantic. There's the tropical wave. These two will probably interact in a negative fashion with each other, and that tropical system doesn't have much of a chance to develop. Now remember, I want to show the climatology graphic again as we go through this 10-day time period, July 21st through the 31st. Yes, the entire Atlantic Basin generally open for business, but that development is over the past 100 years. Each of these red dots, a development area over the past 100 years or so. So you can clearly see that you typically don't have much going on during this 10-day time frame in the eastern Atlantic. You're more likely to get development in the Gulf, and even more likely than that to get development in the eastern Pacific. So we'll see. It's still some chances of things developing. Sea surface temperature anomalies. These have been fluctuating. Interesting to see very, very strong positive anomalies, those departures from the average or the normal. Now up in the northern Atlantic and in the subtropics, still some fairly impressive positive anomalies here in the deep tropics, but we have this very interesting, curious area of cold anomalies in the area of the southwest Atlantic here, right off the coast of Florida into the eastern Gulf and to the area north of the Greater Antilles. But look right here along the northwest Atlantic, right up against the eastern seaboard. You wonder why it's been so daggone muggy and nasty up in the northeast. It wasn't that the temperatures, it's just like they say, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. And I'm going to tell you, when you got this kind of a positive anomaly going on with the Atlantic Ocean like that, butting right up against the eastern seaboard, and you get those upper 90s, low 100 temperatures going on, which they had in some places, you have all that air laden with moisture, and you get this oppressive, downright dangerous air mass. It's also interesting to have all this warm water up here as we get ready to enter the peak of the hurricane season coming up in August and September. Yes, we do have cooler water compared to average in some areas of the tropical Atlantic, but just think if something were to come across and then turn and head towards the northeast, and I'm just saying, you do have all this warm water compared to average. We have to watch this, all right? So we're going to monitor this on a weekly basis. We do anyway. But this is a little bit concerning to me if we were to have something run the eastern seaboard anywhere from North and South Carolina, where the anomalies are about a half a degree above normal, up to the areas off of where Sandy impacted last year. Some of those water temperatures are running 3 or 4 degrees above the long-term average, and that's a little bit concerning. In the Pacific, wow, very cold compared to average right off South America. About neutral here in the tropical Pacific as expected. So that's a look at the sea surface temperature pattern for now. So let's take a look at the future of the tropical wave in the Atlantic. First, a look at the tropical cyclone heat potential, the true measure of how much energy is in the ocean. And today, we see right off the coast of Africa, right out here, just a little bit of ocean heat content starting to build in the lower third of the scale here. So there is sufficient warm water along the path of this system. And then the farther west you go, the higher the ocean heat content gets. All right, so that's the stage set that we do have warm water sufficient to provide low-level moisture and thus energy for this system. The question, I think, is going to be how much mid-level dry air there is in association with that, the Saharan air layer, how much that injects into the system. So let's look at the GFS, the Global Forecast System 12Z run. This is the most recent run of the model, and we're looking at the 5,000 foot level of that model, or 850 millibars. Here is the outline of this huge ridge of high pressure that's just going to build and build and build over the central Atlantic. This is the vorticity signature of our tropical wave right off the coast of Africa here. Remember, I've said it many times, I'm looking to see how round it gets and how much energy or vorticity there is, as noted by the scale over here. I'm not going to get into the mathematics of it, but the more round and the more colors there are, to really simplify it for you, the stronger the vorticity or the spin is, and the more efficient it is bundling energy, and therefore the stronger it is. So this is what the map looks like right about now. Let's move out to 24 hours. So this will be valid Tuesday morning. And here's our system sitting out here, still just off the coast of Africa, not looking very impressive. Weak trough over the eastern United States as the ridge starts to build here over the eastern and central Atlantic. 48 hours. This is Wednesday morning. This is where the system may bloom just for a tad. Right here, it looks pretty impressive in the vorticity signature south of this building, very stout Bermuda Azores High, as a weak trough sits over the eastern United States here. There's our system just west of the Cape Verde Islands. Now let's move on out to Thursday morning. There's the system, kind of looking like an oval, or, not very round. So I think it's only got a short period of time to develop, unless the model is simply wrong. We'll see. The GFS is pretty good at this cyclogenesis stuff, but I'm going to tell you, when you see something south of a huge ridge of high pressure like this, that's a lot of pressure put on it. It's probably going to be moving fairly fast, and that's very high pressure building over the Atlantic, and those typically squash these systems That's just what experience has shown me. So I just don't think it's going to develop much. And the GFS seeing that with the shape of the vorticity, not very impressive. So it leads me to believe that by 72 hours here, we won't be looking at much to really talk about. But there it is. If we're going out to 96 hours, that ridge just incredibly strong over the Atlantic here. And this system embedded within the trade winds, some pretty dry air probably getting injected into it from the Saharan air layer. Wouldn't surprise me at all if it starts to fizzle and dwindle away by day 4. And then by day 5, same kind of thing, really starting to weaken and lose its signature overall. You can still see the slight curvature in the 850 millibar field here as the ridge of high pressure starts to weaken maybe just a little bit. And this system tries to approach the 20 degree north, 60 degree west line that we like to look at, but it's going to be pretty weak, I think, and of not much consequence. So if we move on out in time, this map, let's see, where were we? That was valid on Saturday, so we're at 120 hours out. Again, that's the 5,000 foot level. Here's what it looks like up at 18 to 20,000 feet, or the 500 millibar chart. You can't see it. It's not there. So that shows me that it's very shallow, that the vorticity or energy does not work its way up the spin, way up into the atmosphere. That's my try to draw a spin for you. But honestly, look in here. You just don't see a signature of the system anywhere where it should be. So let's go back, and I'll show you the 850 chart. All right. So there it is at 850 millibars. Pretty clear to see. But it's not there at the 500 millibar chart. That field, it's just not there. So that tells me, I mean, if we zoom in on it, nope, you don't even, I mean, maybe just a slight little kink in the wind barbs, but man, you're really reaching hard when you have to try to look for that. So bottom line, even though we do have a tropical wave that's interesting, got a tropical weather outlook issued for it, I don't think it's going to do much, and I think the evidence supports that. We shall see what we shall see. The real weather will pan itself out, and we'll see what happens, right? But I don't think it's going to be too much to worry about. It is, however, a continued warning shot, I believe, of an active hurricane season ahead. Normally, we wouldn't even suspect development this time of year. It's very rare because of those extreme high pressures over the Atlantic this time of the year. So we've had Chantal. We've got this system, which might have about a 48-hour window to do something. Yeah, I think when we get to a month from now, and climatology leaning more in our favor, I say our favor for those of us that like to track hurricanes, safely out to sea, of course, I believe that things will dramatically change, as they do in pretty much any hurricane season in the modern era, minus an El Nino going on. In other words, we're expecting to see activity pick up in August and September when it's normally supposed to. So enjoy the rest of your week. This is today's video outlook. I'm all finished. Pretty good one. Lots of stuff to cover. Have a good rest of your Monday and a great week ahead. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Always a privilege to do these videos for you on Hurricane Pro and the iPad version HD. I'll talk to you some more tomorrow.